Well, I'm a bit like a bear with a sore head at the moment. The Queensland Government has just put out a discussion paper about births, deaths and marriages and making changes to what's recorded on people's birth certificates. The discussion paper introduced by the Attorney General, Qld Govt, starts with the words, "Now that we have marriage equality." Now, we were told that when so-called marriage equality was brought in, there would be no consequences. But this discussion paper is all about allowing people who want to change their gender because they feel like they might be someone of the opposite gender trapped in the body of their biological sex. It allows them to go down to births, deaths and marriages and get a new birth certificate. This is what is discussed in this discussion paper on the Queensland Government website introduced by the Attorney General of Qld Govt. Now, every day during the marriage campaign last year, we said that the transgender agenda, that radical LGBTIQ sex education, that changing one's gender, changing birth certificates, fabricating them so they mean something different, that this was all a package deal with same-sex marriage. If you de-gender marriage, the whole gender de-gendering agenda finds its way through the rest of society. And of course in our schools, and even today in the Courier Mail, we see a story about the Genderbread Person resource, which teaches children their gender is fluid. It's being taught at Mitchelton State High School here in Brisbane, and I've also heard reports indirectly that it's being taught in Toowoomba as well. So we're seeing this. The ink is barely dry on the new so-called marriage equality legislation, and the transgender agenda, which is where the activists pivoted overseas, is now the pivot here in Australia and here in Queensland. It was really fascinating watching Peter Credlin last night on Sky News talking about this. She must have read my blog, it seems. Maybe she didn't, but she was certainly speaking as if she had. And she was speaking with real passion, which is terrific. But I wish we'd have had that passion from mainstream media commentators like her last year, in the last 10 years, when we really needed it. Peter Credlin finished her editorial, her editorial on Sky News with the words, "We have to resist this." Well, that's exactly right. But too many people like her and Paul Murray, who's also on Sky, who I also respect greatly, he said that Cory Bernardi was right, that the No campaign was right. It's great to be saying that now, but we needed their voices when this fight was on. And now we've got a real mess to clean up. People are wondering, how do we address this gender agenda? It's a big problem. Look, the good news is there's voices that are now speaking out and recognising this is a problem. We've been hoodwinked. The Australian people were hoodwinked at the marriage plebiscite. They were told there'd be no consequences. Now we're seeing the consequences come to light as we said they would. So this is a big deal. We've got to stay engaged in this fight. If you're wondering, wanting to know more about this, go to lyleshelton.org.au. I blogged about this yesterday on my blog, and you can read it there. There's a link through to the Queensland Government's discussion paper. You've only got to the 19th of April to put in your concerns, a submission to it. I'd encourage you to do it, even if it's just a few lines. You can take some of your cues from what I've written in your own words, but it's really important that we speak up and that we resist this, as Peter Credlin has said we should. So thanks a lot, but it's really important that we stay engaged in these fights.